Okay, Chair, we're streaming live on YouTube, so I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll make it a minute too. I'll be good and wait. Okay. Good evening and welcome to East Devon District Council's virtual LED monitoring forum meeting on the 12th of April 2022. I am your chair, Councillor Sam Hawkins, and I'd like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming. Based on the decision of Council, we will continue to hold virtual meetings until the 11th of May 2022. I'd like to remind both members and the public attending or watching that this Council has delegated much of its decision-taking power to our senior officers. May I remind members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting. We reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who is disrupting the meeting by whatever means. Please turn any telephone devices off or to silent. In the event of a break in the internet connection, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we are not able to reconnect, we will consider the meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. We will now start the meeting by doing a roll call of forum members here present.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with yourself. So Councillor Hawkins.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott. Councillor Dent.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor De Simon.
Present. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Councillor Hayward. Councillor Hookway.
Present. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon. Councillor Young.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Pook. Councillor Rowland.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're correct. So I'll pass back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Agenda item 1, public speaker. There is one member of the public registered to speak, Mr. Mike Goodman. Mr. Goodman, welcome. I will hand over to you, as I'm sure you're aware you've got your 3 minutes and it will come with a 30-second warning.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. This is the 11th occasion when this forum has met, and disappointingly, this is the first time a resident has spoken. I hope my contribution tonight will add value to the importance of the leisure debate. The provision of leisure facilities can and does have a profound effect on the health and well-being of residents. This can be demonstrated in the published accounts of LED of March 2021. The report lists the social value aspect of LED in East Devon and estimated the social value projections and the number of cases prevented, which is a good indicator of the value of exercise and leisure. I asked, was this report discussed at a forum meeting? Because I believe this committee may have missed an opportunity in debating the social value report. And there is an opportunity of linking this to public health and the key role in public health of prevention, which the social value report confirms. On the 6th of July 2021, the forum agreed to complete an East Devon leisure strategy. However, the document says there is a low impact on equalities. There will be a potential impact and could be a serious impact on equalities. Can you confirm that the completed strategy will include a detailed equalities report? The Council's policy framework does not include leisure. Can you confirm that the new leisure strategy will be taken to full Council, and will the strategy be completed by May? The Exmouth Pavilion attraction provides excellent facilities and entertainment for residents and visitors. But as comments in the meetings indicate, the building's ongoing maintenance itself is costly to the Council. However, as a pavilion, I'm sure will form part of this new leisure strategy, can the Council ensure these facilities will be continued to be maintained? There is now a public document showing some high-level KPIs. Are members informed of more comprehensive list of KPIs, and can these be made more public? When setting the KPIs, what benchmarking was used with other authorities when being completed? And will the KPIs be changed after the leisure strategy has been adopted? The financial accounts of LED are not discussed in open forum. I understand that not all the accounts pertain to you, but they will influence financial
30 seconds remaining.
Of you. Thank you. Can you confirm that detailed accounts or abridged management accounts are discussed? These are indeed challenging times for the leisure industry to ensure value for money is achieved by the council and by the same time deliver the new leisure strategy. Can I suggest that a plan is put in place to drive down operating costs, increase revenue, and become less reliant in the future on the council and making up shortfalls? Finally, will the strategy be used in setting the first contract negotiations? Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you, Mr. Goodman. And you've provided us some of your questions in advance.
Yes.
So I'm pleased to be able to respond to some of the points raised. I'll do my best to go through the order. I think you read them out. The social value report, I'm pretty sure that was an agenda item in a previous meeting. I can see some nodding heads. I can't tell you which one, but I will.
I can tell you there was one on the 6th of July, I think it was. They talked about well-being, but they did not discuss that report. And I checked every minute of all the forum meetings. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I don't think it was discussed. And I did look at it. I just think it's a great opportunity, a great report, I thought.
No, I do remember there being a discussion, but I can't tell you what I'll do after this meeting is we'll have a look through and try and refresh our minds on when that was. And then going back to the other parts, I understand that Strategic Leisure will present a draft leisure strategy to the forum in May for consideration. As you've already highlighted, unfortunately, the council's failed to implement a leisure strategy for well over a decade, and it is vitally important that we have one in order to assess our priorities for the coming years. Since the commencement of this committee and my appointment as a chair, I've treated the development of this strategy as my biggest priority, and I believe that's shared by forum and officers. As you touched on, I agree that the equalities section are essential in this context and presume that Strategic Leisure will include reference to this in their reports with advice on inclusivity, access and equalities. The Exmouth Pavilion will form part of the leisure strategy or the updated culture strategy that's being worked on, or potentially both. Without these documents, it's too early to be able to say if the council can maintain the facilities without extra costs. We do know that the building requires investment, and much will depend upon the commercial viability of that facility. Next, to address the KPI report as it currently stands that comes to us, that's, I think it's fair to say, it's more of an activity report with trends rather than performance against a set predetermined KPIs targets. As the council doesn't have a leisure strategy, it'd be difficult for the council to pick its KPIs at the moment, and I think they'd be rather arbitrary. The new leisure strategy will identify outcomes that the council can turn into meaningful KPIs, and I think it's just important there to remember as well that LED is an independent organisation and not part of the council, which is where you get some of that rub. Onto the accounts. So LED is a registered society under the Cooperative and Community Benefits Society Act of 2014. A nice read if you've ever got any spare time. Its audited accounts are available there from the FCA's Mutual Public Register. And as I think you commented as well, there are detailed management accounts that are discussed in private section. And of course, they do form part of the necessary discussions around subsidies and the like, but due to commercial sensitivities, we just need to be careful where those discussions are had.
I understand.
Correct me if I'm wrong, was there an area I missed? That's the end of my notes, that's all.
I'm really talking tonight because I feel very passionate about the importance of public health. And I do think there's a link there that could be made. In some of the previous accounts I read, there was some link to it. I think we really could do an excellent service to our residents by linking more public health to leisure. Yeah.
I will hand over to Councillor Hookway as the relevant portfolio holder as well, just so I can see his hands up and he might have some value contribution, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you also to you, Mr. Goodman, for your public speaking and using the phrase leisure debate. I think we are going to have a debate about leisure over the next 2 or 3 years and exactly how we can provide that. I think so far this council has an excellent record in providing leisure, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years during the pandemic, when we have provided a full leisure service without any support from the government at all, to the tune of £1.9 million. And I think that says volumes for the competence of our officers and the willingness of members to continue to provide leisure facilities in this district. Thank you.
Could I just come back there, Chairman? I think we need to be very careful when we say about government help. The government have helped enormously the leisure industry. If you look at the furlough, etc., so it's not fair to say they've not had any. I think it's a way you're terming it, and I would disagree with that, but that is up for you.
Mr. Goodman, this is not a debate. You are a public speaker. I have stated a fact that has been published and commented on and discussed in council meetings frequently. £1.9 million we have used to keep LED afloat without any support whatsoever from central government. That is fact.
Thank you. I've got 2 other people who want to come in. Purely because of their roles in this council, I think it might be appropriate just to add a bit of context where appropriate. So we've got Councillor Miller, who's Deputy Chair on the forum, and then I'll go to the leader, and then we'll carry on with the meeting. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to address the first point that Mr. Goodman made, which was that there were no members of the public who have contributed to these meetings before. I just wanted to let him know about the 845 people that have completed our consultation for the new leisure and built facilities strategy. And I think that's a really good number for a local council. It's something that we should be proud of. And I just wanted to add my support to what Councillor Hookway said, with the greatest respect to Mr. Goodman, Councillor Goodman, whatever. He's not a councillor on this authority. And I don't think there should be this sort of two-way debate. The public speaking ends, and then I think we respond. But I don't think, Chair, it should be allowed for the public speak to keep coming back as has happened. Thank you, Chair.
And Councillor Arnott, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I can't really add much more than Councillor Miller and Councillor Hookway have just said, both of which are extremely helpful. Just to reinforce the fact, obviously, I know Councillor Goodman won't want to hide behind the fact that he is a Conservative councillor. And so I think two pleas to him, really. If you can, please talk to your MPs, whether in Surrey or here, and see if they can help us get this £1.9 million support back, on the basis of the promise of which would be forthcoming. We went ahead and supported LED through COVID. If Councillor Goodman can do that, that would be fantastic. And the other thing is just a recommendation. I think these contributions are extremely enjoyable, and I suppose on the surface they look forensic. But perhaps Councillor Goodman can have a look at the Constitution on the rules around public speaking, and that would be very helpful in future. But Chair, I think you've dealt with that brilliantly. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your input, and thank you, Mr. Goodman, for partaking in this part of our meeting. It's appreciated. We'll now move on to agenda item 2, which are the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 1st of March 2022. If there are any members with any comment on the minutes, please raise your electronic hand. And if there are no issues, I will assume that you're all content and they are agreed. I see no hands raised, so I'll take that as agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 3, apologies. Sarah, do we have any apologies, please?
I have apologies from Councillor Loudon.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest, and back over to you, Sarah, to do a roll call, please.
Thank you. So Councillor Hawkins?
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miller?
I'm a member of LED. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott?
Sorry, yes, no longer a member of LED, so no interest to declare. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dent?
Yeah, member of LED.
Thank you. Councillor De Sarum?
No declaration. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway?
None, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Young?
All my immediate family are members of LED, but unfortunately, I'm not.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Rowland?
None, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 5, matters of urgency. I believe agenda item 10 counts as a matter of urgency, but it's just not on my notes because I think it came through late. I can't see anyone telling me I'm wrong. So that's is a item then. I believe that has been recommended as an urgent item. Agenda item 6, confidential or exempt items. There is one item which officers recommend should be dealt with in this way, listed as agenda item 11. Agenda item 7 is the LED facilities and activity report for March 2022, and that is a report by Jamie from LED, please.
Thank you, Chair. I won't sort of go through the report verbatim. If I could perhaps just highlight a couple of points really for members, particularly after last month stating how positive it was sort of moving away from COVID, and clearly spoke too soon. And we had a bit of service disruption, I think it's probably fair to say, over the last 6 weeks with some COVID challenges. And you know, we lost an entire shift at Exmouth Leisure Centre as an example, but I think credit to the team that went in and helped out. And we kept the operation open with, you know, I think members not quite sleeping there, but not far away. So we did have some challenge, which resulted in a bit of service disruption. The team have continued to have an excellent safety focus. We're in the middle of our ongoing audits, and everyone thus far has improved their safety score in previous years, which is positive. The investment that East Devon has put into some of our projects with support from the National Leisure Recovery Fund are progressing well. The Honiton refurbishment project is just in its snagging phase now, but it's been well received. And the Sidmouth changing room refresh project is coming to the end of that. There's a lot of focus on energy, as you would expect. We've all sort of seen what's happening to, you know, in both our personal lives and our working lives around energy. So there continues to be a real focus there, and there's a lot of debate in the last meeting around some further investment with regards to the Pulse Sentry system, which is going through approvals as we speak. And to finish, really, as we moved into March, we went forward with some of our key numbers, which again are not shown on the dashboard, and I'll talk about the dashboard in item 9. But as a positive, you know, our numbers did grow again as we came out of March. So we are moving in the right direction. It's probably a brief summary, Chair, if that's okay.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor Rowland, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Jamie, for that comprehensive update report. I needed my memory refreshing on one point, in fact, to do with the Sidmouth swimming pool changing room upgrade. I did notice there were some comments coming through on social media before the upgrade started as to whether there were going to be any additional facilities for disabled users taken into account in those changing room upgrades. And I couldn't remember, without going back on the initial report that we considered, whether that was an aspect that was being taken into account or not.
We are refreshing the existing accessible change. We are creating some further, it would be inappropriate to call it accessible change, but certainly some larger changing spaces. So if there was somebody with, you know, a carer, for example, we are creating a space. It's actually been designated as a family change, but could very much be used as an area. So not specifically, but we have considered that within the constraints of the building and the work that we are doing.
Okay, thanks, Joan. That's probably why I got confused when I read the report when it said about the family changing area. But thanks for clarifying that then. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dent, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I must say I'm concerned about COVID and the prevalence of it. Right now, according to the app I look at and report each day, there's over 11,000 people in East Devon who have the infection. There are over 180 people in RD&E. COVID has by no means gone away. I know a lot of people around here who've had it, and in some cases badly. I just am slightly concerned that I see there's no mask wearing, the screens are gone. This is in Exmouth, that's where I go. The screens are gone on the desk. what do we think we should be doing going forward in the short term, at least, to protect ourselves and our teams from COVID? Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Councillor Dane. I it's one of the things we've done is we've talked to our team, and I think the challenge we have is it becomes both customers and team. It becomes a point of choice, doesn't it? We actively encourage our teams to socially distance. If they wish to wear a mask, we actively support. We changed our policy so that if somebody is testing positive, they don't come to work. So we are maintaining that isolation period and supporting colleagues with that, whereas obviously that was no longer a legal requirement. So hence, when we had 10 team members, we called in colleagues from across the business to support, to maintain the operation. So we are continuing to support as far as we can, and what we have done. But it's very much, certainly for customers, a personal choice, and we do take that feedback regularly and constantly review and monitor the feedback that we're given around that. But I take your point, and we'll take that back again for sure.
Thank you. John Golden, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on what might be the obvious, but it relates to what the public speaker mentioned. And I'm grateful for Jamie, and I think a lot of you are going to speak earlier, that these reports on activity and outreach work are full of links with the public health agenda. So Leisure East Devon, with our support and encouragement, have really geared a lot of the activity that they do nowadays around not only the public health agenda, but the National Health Service agenda as well. And I'm really pleased to see that the reports are full of those linkages. Thanks, Jamie, for that.
Thank you, John. I think that's a very valid point. And over to Councillor Miller, please.
Thanks, Joe. I'd also like to endorse what John just said. I think that's a very important point. I just wanted to follow up what Councillor Dent said, because I was also recently at the regularly go to the leisure centre, and there was some, as well as not having screens, I was in a situation where there was a sort of real crowd at the front by the reception. Now, I've invested, £2 or £3 in a wristband that gives me quicker access, but I think it's clearly an issue, not just the screens, but the speed at which customers get through the reception point to sign in to the leisure centre, and actually to get to their exercise classes. The reason I was in the queue was because unfortunately the lights for the squash court weren't on, so otherwise I wouldn't have been there. But it just illustrates that I have suggested to Peter before that we try to find ways to improve as LED, and that's from a customer's perspective. But as Councillor Dent has referred to with the screens, there are also things that we can do to make people feel safe, make members feel safe within our facilities. And what I've just referred to there, hopefully, is one measure we could take in terms of perhaps giving the wristbands, where you can sign in automatically rather than having to go to somebody on reception, giving them out rather than selling them. And then if you lose a wristband, you have to pay for replacement. I think that might be a good little investment for LED to improve customer satisfaction and the experience generally. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Young, please.
Just following on from Councillor Paul Miller, my wife does go to the gym quite a lot, and she was saying exactly the same point about the wristbands. A lot of her friends feel that they shouldn't be paying for £3 for it, so they have to queue. Then there's a bundle of people at the check-in all at the same time, and they'd be quite happy to replace any that if they lose, but they don't feel that they should be paying £3 on the kickoff. I don't know if that can be sorted, but that was just a little moan from my wife. Thank you.
Thanks, both. Obviously, that's an operational matter for LED. I'm sure they'll appreciate the feedback and will let us know in one of their next reports if they make any changes in that respect. As I can't see any other hands up, I think we're just happy to note and thank Jamie for his report and move on to the next item, which is, he says, trying to buy time. Agenda item 8, LED outreach report, and we are joined by Lottie Edwards today, who is LED's community engagement manager.
Yeah. Hi there. Yeah, thank you for letting me speak today. I just wanted, obviously you've had the report previously, so I won't go through it all. Again, I'll just pick up some of the highlights. Just really to emphasise what John said, we are trying to do new ways of working with the NHS. You know, on the prevention agenda and the long-term plan, but also highlighting the East Devon District Council public health strategy around the priority areas as a whole. So we've working closely with the new social prescribing model. As you probably aware, Ways to Wellbeing ceased and it's been replaced with a new focus around mental health. So we've already made links with the mental health coaches and connected to try and make the physical activity pathway easy for the district. So we're opening up space for the actual coaches to take their clients into the centre, to come with them to break down those immediate barriers, which is huge for physical activity. And if we want to make long-term change and behaviour change, it's all about trying to break down those barriers. So that's, you know, it's early days. They've got some new in all localities, so hopefully the Exmouth ones will be starting soon. But also in terms of now we've made links with the community physios, so now they come into our centres to deliver their classes for off-peak times. They can bring their clients in, which again is quite a forward way for a leisure provider, I think, to engage with the health sector. It's showing a trust relationship, and the link between physical activity and the agenda is high there. And then just touching on the areas of deprivation we talked about. So we've been doing some early intervention work in Little and Primary School with Heads Up, who are a mental health charity, because actually it was highlighted that due to COVID, a lot of the younger students are suffering in terms of going up to high school and even just really early intervention. So even there we're doing years 1 and 2. And then to the community college, working with disengaged students who shy away from your average sports and PE lessons. So they're being handpicked through the leads there, and it's Senko and pupil premium down at Exmouth, but it's also like a PE teacher in Honiton who have identified those. So lots of work going on, creating the links back from when we were off, and I think it is going really well. Obviously there's lots in the report, so I won't go through it all. I could keep going, but it's do you know, it's really great, and we are making some really great improvements to the community, I believe.
Excellent, thank you, Lottie. One question I do have that I'm sure everyone's half expecting is I didn't see any reference to Cranbrook in the report. I'm just as well with the Sport England local delivery pilot, also looking at social prescribing. There seems to be some natural overlap.
Yeah, so it's been quite a frustrating time. I've been trying since I came back for a year to get a proper meeting with the local delivery pilot, which actually I had coincidentally last Thursday. It wasn't planned because I knew I was coming to this meeting. It just happened to align nicely. So we're now starting to go back to the Move More meetings and try to be more of a present. I do believe just personally that it's just, I think due to COVID and the organisations, it's quite heavy in there. So they're obviously using the Wellbeing Exeter model. So we're aware of it. I'm doing as much as I can to try and get back in there on the forefront, because we've done a lot of really good stuff in Cranbrook from the word go. So I do believe we've got value to add there going forward. So there's a community day, which I've linked the team at Ottery up to. So hopefully they'll attend. But I think it's more just now trying to have more of a presence and seeing how we can influence that on the ground. But it's definitely on the radar. But the problem is it won't be in the report because at the moment I can't actually say project-wise much has happened. But I have been trying.
It's good to hear it's on the radar. Councillor Hookway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much indeed to Lottie for this very excellent report. I think you're doing some extremely important and valuable work. I really do. And reading through this, there's some really excellent examples of work that you're doing across the district. I'm particularly going to make reference to the Littleham Health and Wellbeing Fair. As one of the ward members, please let me know when you're intending to do this and I will attend. And I'm looking forward to that. I think that could be a very positive move. Thank you.
That's fine. Well, I can answer that. So it's on the 25th of May and it's between 4 and 6 p.m. at the Littleham, well, they call it Leisure Centre. It's by the primary school. So we're going to be there as a presence. So we're going to take our in-body machine over, but we're also offering free yoga taster sessions. And the plan is we want to do some legacy sustainability work there. So the plan is hopefully afterwards we can actually do a class in Littleham. At a nominal for lower cost to try and engage the community. Area of deprivation, hard to engage. So we're hoping once we can do that, we can get a class in there for the community.
Fantastic work. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Lottie, for joining our meeting. I can't see any other hands, so we'll move on then to agenda item 9, which is the LED dashboard, and I've got Peter down to speak on that item, please. You're muted.
I think Jamie was going to pick this one up, weren't you, Jamie?
Yeah, can do. Can do. Happy to have got it open. So I think just as a summary, February, obviously this is looking at February, so it's, obviously we didn't quite have March's finish when the data was sent, but daily attendances were comparable, albeit you would look and see 10%. So you've got less days in February than you have in January. So daily attendance was comparable, with swimming considerably up, and swimming continues to be very, very popular. Group exercise again performed well, with gym and sports both comparable daily attendances. I think, as I said, it's a good time of year from a membership perspective. So our membership is growing slowly. It grew in February. It grew again in March. So that was a positive. And I think probably the key one for us, which probably feeds into some of the comments earlier on, is the Net Promoter Score. We look at those every day and we take that feedback and we learn from that on a daily basis. So the trends are moving in the right direction. Our challenge with everything that's happening in the world is to keep it going in that direction. And that's probably a very brief summary, Chair, of the dashboard. Activities up.
Excellent. We want it to be up. Can't see any hands, so I think everyone's happy to note that item. And we'll move on to agenda item 10, Colleton Leisure Centre and all-weather pitch. Originally this was by Tim, but he has taken some strategic leave, so it will be over to Simon for any detailed questions you want. He will be all over them, I'm sure.
Thank you, Chair, for your support. But Peter Gilpin's in the meeting, Chief Executive of LED, and will be able to probably help out if there are any detailed questions. The report's fairly straightforward and quite short in terms of requests come through from Colleton Grammar School for a contribution from East Devon towards the all-weather pitch. A request is put forward of 40%, 144,000, not currently in our budget. So if members are minded to, I suppose the recommendation is asking for a view from the forum in terms of how to progress with the request, in that it's out of sync in terms of the work of producing the leisure strategy. So the leisure strategy, we're expecting to have an outline draft that can be discussed with members in terms of helping to formalise the final version probably in May, but we won't have the final version that's sort of been discussed and debated probably until June, July. So if we wait for that, it's out of sync in terms of the timetable that the grammar school suggests when they want to tender. It's coming to you to be transparent in terms of that request has come in for 144,000, and for a view of whether you want us to put together a more detailed business case, firm up the numbers, and put a report either back to this forum or probably, in order to meet the deadlines of the tender, probably straight to Cabinet. So it's just to get a view whether you wish us to progress with that, wait for the strategy, or take members' view, Chair.
Thank you, Simon. I think as you touched on that, it's very much for members to consider what they think is the best way forward. So Councillor Rowland, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the key thing is in this particular request is the timing in view of the leisure strategy review report that we're anticipating soon. It just doesn't quite make sense to me to try and consider this at the moment, because even if you put that strategy report to one side, to consider that 144,000, which is outside of budget at the moment. So as I understand it, and as Simon wants to correct me, to consider that anyway, we'd have to be considering that through the budget allocation. And because we've already agreed the budget for this coming financial year, we're almost having to build that into looking at the 2023-24 budget allocation for capital expense. So I don't quite understand how we could consider that at the moment, unless Simon can correct me on that point. The other thing is I'm not quite sure as well from reading the report when the current management agreements and the lease agreement actually expires, and whether there's any break clauses in that as well. So all I'm throwing up at the moment is actually more questions rather than any comment until I hear what the answers may be. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Simon, are you able to address those questions?
Thank you, Chair. Luckily, my internet went down a bit then, so I did actually, even though I don't think I'll probably be able to answer the questions that are framed, but my internet did go down in terms of everything frozen. I got the first element in terms of, you are right, the proper process in terms of the budgeting would be an annual process in terms of going through to the capital strategy and capital allocation group and then on to council. However, with capital, if there are urgent items that come through that members feel are important, then they can be debated by Cabinet and approved by council in year, but it does make resourcing quite difficult. I think there were some questions, Councillor Rowland, you were asking around the contract, but I didn't catch it, sorry.
Okay, yeah, it's just in terms of about the current management agreement and the lease agreement. When does that expire, and whether there's any break clauses in the lease agreement anyway?
Okay. I don't know the answer to that, Chair. I don't know whether Peter Gilpin is aware of the details.
Yeah, I can possibly help, and I'm frozen again. This is unfortunate in timing more than anything else. Just to specifically answer that question, there's a 99-year lease, of which we're only about a quarter of the way through. So there's still a long way to go in terms of the lease, and extracting East Devon from that lease and the school would be very problematical. There is a management agreement which supports it. Now, the management agreement can be altered, and that is a 5-year arrangement where it's supposed to be reviewed every 5 years. And what this brings into focus is that Colleton is the same as all the other dual use sites, where the council's contribution is 60% of all the costs and the school's contribution is 40%. So when I say the council's contribution is 60%, that breaks into two parts as well. LED as the operator is responsible for 60% of the operating costs. So when the gas and electricity bills come in, we pay 60% and the school contributes 40%. Or something like that. The bigger cost in reality on the length of the lease is actually the premises cost, which is picked up by Tim Child and the council's property services team. And that's the bigger cost. And that's probably where this issue of the artificial turf pitch sort of comes to a head. The unfortunate thing about the timing is, yeah, it would be great if we could have the leisure strategy in advance of this decision, because that would inform members of the importance of this pitch in relation to the other pitches which are sort of in that area. So if you imagine a Venn diagram, you've also got an artificial turf pitch in Axminster, you've got an artificial turf pitch in Sidmouth. There's aspirations for an artificial turf pitch in Honiton, which is probably going to come out, in my guess, as an important strategic requirement for the council to consider is whether to support an artificial turf pitch in Honiton. So without that strategy, it's difficult to make that decision in the round, looking at all the other facilities and Colleton's importance within them. The problem is that the pitch is worn out and the floodlights also need replacing. So in an ideal world, we would wait for the leisure strategy to be complete, see what the importance of this pitch is, and then determine whether it's important to support it financially, or whether those limited resources that the council have got would be better allocated elsewhere. So the school, due to the condition of the pitch, have gone to tender and want to get the work done this summer, and they need a decision by May of this year, which puts the council, I appreciate, in a very difficult position. And I'm not one to try to persuade you either way. I think it's for me to give you a clarity on the situation. So the risk, I guess, is the important thing. The risk would be that if the pitch isn't repaired and the floodlights aren't replaced this summer, there is a risk of failure over the next winter. And obviously that affects the revenue that LED receives from the pitch. So the risk is we could lose the use of the pitch either for periods of a time or for perhaps the winter, because most of our use is evenings, and in the evenings without floodlights it's useless after sort of the end of September. So I can just tell you that the cost, for example, of the so we get about £20,000 a year of revenue from the pitch and the floodlights. So the risk would be the loss of that over the coming winter if the pitch isn't replaced and repaired this summer. So that's a cost. So as Simon said, what we're still trying to ascertain in more detail is what the actual cost benefit would be of replacing it this summer, and how long it would take for that benefit to work through as a return. And at the moment, we are looking at something like a 10 to 15 year period to see a financial return on that investment in terms of what I've just been saying. So if we're making 20,000 a year from the pitch, obviously in 5 years, it's going to return 100,000, but there are costs as well. So I don't know whether that, as I say, I don't intend to try to guide you at the moment. It's a difficult decision. Operationally, I'd like to see the pitch in use. In terms of the community, I think the community would like to see the pitch continue. Rachel Fowler of Strategic Leisure has identified that there is significant use of the pitch by the community, but she's also identified that, as I say, there are other pitches which are also going to come out of the leisure strategy. And don't forget, they're doing the playing pitch strategy as well, with focus on the playing pitches which are associated to the leisure centre. So that is effectively the artificial turf pitches. So she sees a value to it, but she can't at this moment conclude in her strategy, because she hasn't got that far down it yet, how important Colleton is as opposed to the investment that might be required in other pitches and other facilities once the strategy is issued. So, Chair, I'm not sure if I've been particularly helpful, but it might help the debate, and I'm happy to contribute a bit more information if needed.
Excellent. No, thank you. I think that's some useful context. Councillor Rowland, I'm going to bounce straight back to you, just because I think it would. You've probably spurned another question off that, and it probably flows quite nicely.
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, because it's got a critical stage with the pitch, I mean, surely with, I don't know how often it's actually looked at to see the condition of it, but how long has it been apparent that the life cycle of it has been coming to an end? Because surely that hasn't suddenly happened. It must have been apparent even a year or 2 years ago about the lifespan of it.
Yeah, Chair, if I could come back. This has been an ongoing issue for about 5 years. And what I didn't explain is that the pitch technically is not within the lease. So up to now, the school are 100% responsible for the repair costs to the pitch. And what I didn't say was that the school are prepared to amend that 60-40 contribution element in return for investment in the pitch. I've submitted calculations to the school which show that actually since this dual use agreement, and this applies to all the other sites as well, all the other dual use sites as well, things have changed since those management agreements were written in the 1980s, believe it or not, when lots of activities went on in school sites during school holidays. And when I was growing up, you used to have summer holiday camps, and my parents would dump me off at a school for a fortnight in the summer. And that's what a lot of children did. That's completely changed. We hardly run any summer holiday activities now because there are so many other things that children do. And there are so many more safeguarding issues and coaching issues. So what I proposed to the school when I worked out the usage is actually the community use is now 40%, not 60%. So it flips it that the school would contribute 60% of the costs in future, and LED and EDDC would contribute 40%. So then again, that's a saving for both parties on our side of the equation, which we haven't yet fully costed through. Tim Child needs to work that through in terms of, so if the pitch has a 15-year life cycle, how much is Tim going to save from property costs over 15 years? It will be quite significant. So this is an opportunity, as I think Jane's report says, to renegotiate that management agreement in favour of the council and in favour of LED. And in return, what they're looking for is investment in a pitch which does have community value, but we can't precisely say how much value until the leisure strategy is out.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And with apologies, if Debbie could just note, I'm declaring a personal interest in this because it sits within my ward as a district councillor. Thank you so much, Peter, for this and for this report. And it feels like it's early as well, so that's good. I know there are issues with timing over the summer, but I'll come to those. Just to give a little bit of detail that I'm sure will come through the report that's coming. In no particular order. So it's very sweet of them to throw in the netball courts, which are basically quite small areas of tarmac. So that's nice. That's sort of the least that they could offer, I think, but would absolutely support the idea of growing netball in the lower Axe Valley. And I think this is the point, the key point I'd want to make. It's called Collerton. It's actually in Colliford. And what it is it's a sports provision for the lower Axe Valley. So as a former football coach, I've coached youth boys and youth girls teams there. And if you go there on a Friday night, it is absolutely humming, probably of an evening, anywhere up to 100 young people there being trained for football. And that's Collerton. Seaton is exactly the same. So Seaton train on that pitch as well. That's their youth, but so do their adult teams as well. Because I mean, not through the year when they can play on their one pitch in Seaton, they will. And when Collerton can save a few bob and play down on our playing fields, which are fundamentally underwater for about 3 months a year, they will as well. But so I'm just giving this as detail, not to persuade the forum at all. It is hugely used by local young people and people a bit older playing, amateur leagues football as well. So if that was lost for even a year, that would have a really serious effect on those teams. they'd have to play like I used to play, basically just turn up without training, because that's what it would be. They just have to turn up on grass pitches and have a go. I think then, if you look at the question I'd have for Peter in a second, while I'm on a roll, is what the nature of the surface will be. The surface at the moment, it's mentioned that tennis can be played on it, but tennis can really only be played on it if you don't mind it having about the bounce is about 2 inches off the surface. So that's brilliant for a particular skill set, you know, but it's not really a tennis surface. I think the other thing I'd say, so it's used for hockey at a very high level as well, and lots of adult teams and junior teams are there, so it's hugely well used. I think the other problem, this is why I think even this 60-40 split in our favour, you know, I fancy 80-20, and the reason is that, having had 4 children at the school, it's the playground. It is the school playground, 5 days a week, and it gets intense use from that. So that's good. That's good. We want, you know, grammar school children to be running around as well as studying. But I would contend that is probably where most of the impact comes from. Now, I'm not sure if what the school is doing at the moment is saying you can only go on there at break time in trainers. They should be doing that. Or if kids, and they certainly were when my kids were there, are just turning up in their ordinary black shoes and just having a go, which damages the surface. So I don't know what the answer to that is. I think coming to the timing, I think, you know, Peter, you've hit the nail on the head. We're in another one of these things, aren't we, where we're a kind of 2 or 3 months either way. And I am just wondering, obviously, from the school's point of view, ideally they do it over the summer, although of course the summer includes, you know, the last 2 weeks in August, you know, encroaching into the first few days of September even. So although they want a decision in May, I'm wondering if we can defer that a bit. I'd like to hear a little bit, the final question really for Peter is just a little bit more detail. Could it get through to the Christmas holidays? In other words, if we couldn't make the decision now, you know, in Peter's view, could it just about get through to Christmas? I know, again, it's not the ideal time to lay it, weather may be against them and so forth, but or even the half-term holiday in October. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Useful to hear the local correspondent. Peter, please.
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor Arnott. It's what's called a sand-dressed pitch, so it is suitable for hockey. And again, what the leisure strategy would determine is what sports are most important for that pitch. What you've got at Axminster, for example, we got a lot of Football Association funding for the new artificial turf pitch over at Axminster. That's a rubber crumb 3G pitch, which is ideal for football, but you can't play hockey on it because a hockey ball won't roll on it. So if it was to remain a hockey pitch, it would need to be another sand-dressed hockey pitch, and I think that's what the school have in mind. We could try and nurse it through, or the school could. We would run that risk of it being out of action for a while if bad weather or the floodlights failed. I think the main concern, and Jamie might drop in to help me on this, is the time it would take to take the old surface up and relay it. And obviously the school summer holidays are 6 weeks long, and it gives them sufficient time to do the work in better weather. I doubt they could do the work in a week at half term, and I doubt if they would do it in Christmas, because not only is that a shorter holiday, but getting contractors to work over Christmas is almost impossible. So I think it's a summer holiday job personally. So it's either this summer and you support it, or I think it's next summer and we try to nurse it through and keep our fingers crossed for another winter and wait for the leisure strategy.
Thank you. Councillor Arnott, do you want to come back?
Yes, thank you. I won't do a Councillor Goodman on you, Chair. So thank you for your permission to come back. I think that may be the key to this. is whether it can be nursed through, and it would be, if the forum is so minded, for us as a council in due course to send a positive signal that we could support this next year, but as part of budget setting, which will come up soon enough at the end of this year, then it'll be interesting to hear what the feedback would be from the school. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor De Saram, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've listened to the debate, and I can see that it is a very difficult position, and obviously the council wants to help the school as well as the local community, and I think that what we've just heard is a very positive solution, that we should perhaps try and nurse it through to next summer until the strategy evolves. So that basically would be my personal take on it, that we send out a clear message that we have understood what they've said, and we note the fact that the school is also fundraising as well. I mean, maybe if we were to defer it by a year, the school may be able to raise more than the 360 as listed in the report. So my personal choice would be to postpone it until next summer and then see where the school is at that time. So that's what I thought. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I'm muting myself there. Councillor Hookway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm in broad agreement with what people have been saying, because I'm very concerned about the fact that this is a dual use site. We've already heard from Strategic Leisure that dual use sites are a real area of concern financially. And I think we may have a very long and hard discussion about that once we get the leisure strategy published. I have no idea how that's going to go. I am thinking at the moment that we may have a choice that we either look at the dual use sites as a strategic view, and so we apply the same policy to all of them, or we look at them in a tactical view and take them as we find them. So therefore, I think we really must wait for the leisure strategy before we can even consider this. I really do, because there are many other issues that we have to take into account. It's very, very difficult. On the other side, I got involved with this because I had a contact from the grammar school because they wanted new floodlights. And then I passed that on to officers. But I do wonder whether the cost of floodlights may be met out of SIL payments, because my understanding is that SIL payments would provide the cost for the floodlights. But perhaps officers would care to advise me on that one. I'm not certain about that. But that may well be possible for the future. So I suppose it comes to me really, as I'm the last speaker, to make a recommendation. So can I recommend that where's the recommendations gone? That we wait for the leisure strategy before we consider this item again at the LED monitoring forum. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway. Do we have a seconder for that recommendation? Councillor Rowland, can see a hand, physical and electronic.
Yeah, I thought I'd put my hand up as well in case you didn't see the electronic hand. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I will second Councillor Hookway, but can I also add in there as well, in view of the information that Councillor Arnott imparted in view of his local knowledge, that whether to help prolong the life of the pitch in the time being, whether we could ask the school whether there's anything that they can do about the use of the area during the playground if unsuitable footwear is being used, whether they can actually do anything about that to actually help prolong the pitch's life for another potentially a year.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's sensible. Do you want that added as a recommendation?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Councillor Hookway, are you happy to support that addition?
Sorry, could you just repeat that, please?
Sure. Whether we
no shoes on the pitch.
Whether during the break time the pupils can be using more appropriate footwear to be using the all-weather pitch to help prolong the life of it. Yes,
I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got a proposal that's seconded. I think in your remarks, Councillor Whitway, you made a really good point around these dual use sites. I'm nervous around these legal agreements the council's locked into. Just having a look at the bottom of the report, they run 99 years from 2004. So if I was still at school back then, that's just to feel how far back they go and how long we are stuck with them. Councillor Arnott, have you got any final words, and then we'll take that to a vote?
Thank you. Just really a point of information, clarification. I have no idea. They may be playing in moccasins or some kind of furry slippers. So I wouldn't want it to be recorded here that we're accusing them of playing in stack heels as, well, I won't say Councillor Rowland would have been. Certainly I would have been at school, Councillor Rowland and his winkle pickers perhaps. So I don't know that as a fact, Chair, just on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure it's tactfully worded. I can't remember the exact wording. But we will prevent the school from wearing damaging shoes on the pitch. But anyway, if we can, Sarah, are you happy that you've got the wording of that?
Yes, I've got it, Chair. Do you want me to repeat it, or are you happy?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so we've got two recommendations. So the first was that we wait for the leisure strategy before we consider the item again at the LED monitoring forum. And the second was that whether during the break time the pupils can be using more appropriate footwear to be using the all-weather pitch to help prolong the life of it.
Thank you. On that basis, if we can go to a vote using the requisite ticks, crosses, wavy hands, and the like, please.
So we have 7 green ticks in favour, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Just before we go to the private session, I just thought I'd mention that tonight is the last meeting. We're being joined by Bridget, who's LED's finance officer. And just wanted to say thank you, Bridget, for your support on the committee and in coming to our various meetings. It's been great to have you and your input. And
thank you very much. Just thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Sorry, that was my phone ringing, courtesy of the chair of the council. So that's allowing me to repeat. That brings the public part of our consultation meeting to an end. However, can I remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live. And until then, your comments will be live to the public.